Chapter 2, Lifting Rural by R.G. Michaels. To say I was surprised at the arrival of our new house would be an understatement. The house looked like a nice country farmhouse from the road, and for all intents and purposes, it probably was at some point in history. It had a graying, weathered tin roof and white vinyl siding with a forest green trim around the doors and windows. A large French porch and attached garage that looks like a small barn off the back. It was a far cry from the condo Mom and I used to live in back in Ontario, but it seemed nice enough. Mom unlocked the doors with a key she'd been sent by the realtor. Adult stuff like this always made me curious. I mean, we had never been to New Brunswick before, we had been to New Brunswick before to see Dad, but we had never been house shopping in New Brunswick, at least not together. But I figure between Dad getting back in touch with Mom a few years back and her promotions at work, decisions were made that didn't need the all-encompassing approval stamp of an angst-filled teenager from Toronto. Your father's coming over with a bit of muscle to help unload the truck. Let's go check out our new house, she said again, way too cheery for the realities of the moment, in my honest opinion. Stepped into the house, and I kind of wanted to step back out. What greeted us was the stale air of a house that had been foreclosed on and not opened by the bank or anyone, since someone took the pictures Mom and I must have seen before arriving. The kitchen was spacious enough off the entrance, but looked like it belonged in the 70s, with orange and beige floral tiles and curtains to match. The floor creaked when we walked through the living room, and I couldn't help remember that our concrete condo never did that. No sneaking out of the house, I guess. The bathroom seemed clean enough, and normal enough because, God, I needed a shower. But the upstairs was all I was left to explore. Check your feet real quick, reader. Is there carpet beneath you? If there is, cherish that stuff, because the thin, paltry, industrial weave garbage they put in downtown condos is better than the entire house filled with the same discount 70s-era linoleum. Every bedroom I have ever had as a kid was a comfy place, a place where you could lounge on the floor and read comics or wake up with no socks on and not be frozen back into your bed. But this one wasn't. 10-foot by 10-foot room over top of the living room with linoleum on the floor and no paint on the walls. My room was just as much an afterthought as I felt I was moving here. We'll have to get you an area rug for your feet in the morning, Mom said, peeking over my shoulder as I stood in the doorway. I checked the other two bedrooms and no dice. This was a carpetless house. The one redeemable part of the day was the garage. Not that we ever used one, but our car was used to parking on the street. But what most people have for a garage would pass for a shed in New Brunswick. Attached to the house, showing the old vestiges of the farmhouse, was a massive barn-like structure. It was mostly for the wood that was used to heat the house at one point. It would have fit 2 cars, let alone the potential I had in mind for it. Besides the remnants of an old woodpile, I thought there was only what I could assume was farm equipment at some point, long since lost to rust and neglect. I stood there for a good 15 minutes, searching the space out. It seemed to have a raw potential that gave me hope. Even though I might be moving out for a year in college, a space like this could make this move bearable, at least. At least I hope for, anyway. What followed next is kind of hard to describe. The most important thing you need to know is that when a bunch of people move, you need a bunch of people who like you enough to help, and you like enough not to mind asking them to move a hide-a-bed couch, which takes a certain kind of friend to do this, last time I checked. We didn't have these kinds of friends in New Brunswick. Dad, on the other hand, did have these kinds of friends, and they were easily bribed with pizza and beer. Sound came first, a weird, higher-pitched engine sound that I had never really heard before. It wasn't like the import tuner cars I've seen drag racing downtown, in the core sometimes in Toronto, but somehow rougher. I left the garage to find out what it was with my mom right behind me, and my dad and 4 other helmeted bodies showed up on ATVs. They might as well have been a team because they all wore the same hunting camouflage and quite literally had the same rides between the 5 of them. Some sort of redneck biker gang. I really didn't know what to make of it. That would be your father, Mom said from the stoop. We stood there, awkwardly, as the ATVs pulled up and the riders began to dismount. How's the old house? Dad said, taking off his helmet with a smile. A bit of work to get done, but I still love it, Mom gushed. So much character. Well, that's good to hear, Dad said. Son? Dad, I said back with a nod. There was a palpable silence as the camo crew dismounted, and Dad stood there waiting to see if there was anything more to be said. Maybe I should explain the whole dad thing now. You see, Dad left Mom before I was born. Same lame-ass excuse about not being ready for kids, and never really explained it to her well enough for me to get an explanation of my own. And, well, I was a fetus at the time, so no explanation for me. But when I was 10, Dad found Jesus and had to make things right. He doubled down on the child support, begged forgiveness, not only to God, but Mom and my grandparents on her side, too. I slowly got introduced to him, first as one of Mom's friends, and then eventually, around age 13, as my estranged father. Truth is, I wanted this move to the countryside to work out for no other reason than to fill the jealous hole my absent father seemed to put in me every time I was out at his friend's house and their dad would show up with pizza, or even just showed up for that matter. I could tell he meant every I'm sorry, and held that intention with the fact that we didn't really know each other. We had spent weeks worth of time in total alone over the last 5 or so years, and Mom thought the move would give me a chance, and it did, and I did too. I only hoped that we were both right, that it didn't mean that we were all long bear hugs and small talk. Like all relationships, ours was strained and needed work, but at least now I could see that we were both trying. I mean, it takes a lot of effort and commitment to wrangle a bunch of dudes to help you move your ex-girlfriend and a strange son into their new house because you found Jesus. Even I can see that. Jay, Dad hollered from the door to still one of the helmeted riders. Why don't you introduce yourself? Jay was a few inches taller and way bigger across the chest as me as we walked over. An obvious farm kid with the frame and muscles to show for it. Stuffing his helmet under his arm. Hey there, he said with an extended hand. I'm Jay, your wicked step-cousin or something. You must be Chris. I think it's just normal cousin, actually, I said, shaking his hand. He had a grip on him that could break bones, I swear. Really? I was hoping to keep the wicked part. Sounds real cool. He smirked. We both laughed. Trip was good, though? He asked as we walked to the back of the moving truck. The back of the moving truck with the rest to grab our first load of boxes. Can't complain, I said reflectively. It was a bald-faced lie. I was going to do some pouting wimpy, but I wasn't going to be some pouty wimpy city kid in front of the camo-clad rednecks. No one will listen to you anyway, if you did, Jay joked. We laughed, and again, moving's tough, man. I'll keep you company, or at least make fun of you first. Coming from a guy who doesn't know there's no such thing as step-cousins, that makes me feel good. We both laughed again and started unpacking the truck. It took the rest of the day to get everything from into the old farmhouse, and for Mom to figure out where the furniture would go. And as for me, I had this packing thing down pat. It was my bed and dresser. I managed to get my entire room packed into 5 large French fry boxes I lifted from a grocer down the street from our condo. Stacked neatly in the corner of my new, ugly, carpetless room, I spent the last hour of the day before supper with Jay putting my bed together and finding a box marked linens for pillow and blanket for the night. By supper time, the moving truck was on its way to a small town's gas station for drop-off, and one of Dad's friends and Dad's wife, Audrey, was on her way with some pizza from town. There was abundance of small talk and a lack of seating in the living room, so Jay and I went to the porch and enjoyed the cooler air and the odd mosquito bite, along with our pepperoni. Well, at least you're all in now, Jay said with a mouthful of doughy crust. Yeah, thanks again for the help, I said. It's what cousins are for, he said, smiling. Coming to school this Monday, or does your mom still need to register you or something? Yeah, I'm coming. How does that work here, by the way? I normally take a city bus, and we get passes from the school. I imagine the transit system is a little bit different here. I tried to sound hilariously sarcastic, but I know it probably came off as ignorant. Jay finished another bite of pizza and tried to explain before fully swallowing. Well, it's no C train, but our bus will swing by your house around 6:45. I'm the unfortunate bastard who has to get up at 6 to catch it at 6:20, or be the first on said bus. After that, it'll pass your house, pick up Kylie DeLong, and the bus turns around to get all the kids on the other side of the road on the way to town. You're one of the lucky people that gets 2 chances to catch it. 6:45? I questioned. Why so early? Doesn't school start around 9 around here? It does, close to 8:30 though, and you live in the sticks now like the rest of us. In order for the elementary school kids to get to school on time after us, they have to drop us off about half hour early to school, Jay explained. Damn. It used to be a 20-minute bus ride for me. Oh, it's still about 25 minutes in a car if you can drive, but they spread us out kind of thin in these parts, so the bus kind of always takes longer. If you do get one, Jay says, then you can pick my ass up and we can sleep more. My truck's an absolute beast on gas. We laughed and finished our pizza, heading back in now that it was really getting dark, and the last boxes were moved to their respective new rooms. Dad and his friends fired up their four-wheelers and left. Chapter 2. Chapter 2, it was fun to write. Again, lots of experience from my time in New Brunswick. And the four-wheelers thing, that's a real thing. Like, I had never really been exposed to that kind of life before, but there are, like, whole chunks of this country in Canada where, like, that's how people get around. Even though there's roads, it's just as easy to hop on a wheeler and cut through a backfield and stuff like that. So it's awesome. It's entirely new when you get into it. learning about it first myself. Yeah, I crashed my first four-wheeler ride into a tree. It was awesome. But yeah, lots of experience. Hope you guys liked it. And that was chapter 2.